We welcome you live to Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. I'm Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And Gary Close, you are back on camera for a postgame show for the first time in, 8 months? Gary, good to see you, sir.
Been a little while, Corey. Good to see you, too.
So how about this game? We got a lot to get into. We, of course, know that some of these games early on in the season are what I like to call read between the lines type of games. And I tell you, first 12 minutes or so of this one, Gary, I was somewhat underwhelmed by, I thought, effort. Now, you may tell me I'm flat out wrong, but I thought just looked like Iowa was kind of just going through the motions. Am I wrong on that? I mean, they certainly came alive, but am I wrong about the first 12 minutes or so of this one?
It took them a little while to get going, which will happen. To their credit, they got it straightened out pretty quickly and kind of coasted. So, it's early in the year, and you're getting your playing habits down and getting yourself ready to go, and so a little bit of a slow start, but that's going to happen.
Before we get into, again, I have a couple notes that I want to address to you, and we've got a couple callers already waiting here to talk with you, Coach. Since we really haven't had the time, and again, not on camera here, this is game number 3, if you count the exhibition. From what you've seen so far, how would you sum up your assessment of this year's squad through what we've seen thus far?
Well, I think they're off to a nice start. I think this team's got a chance to be pretty good. We've talked about it in the past. It's how much can they keep improving as the year goes on. But I like the chemistry. I like the way they're moving the ball. They've got a lot of assists, and both their 2 wins they're unselfish team, and they've got some talent. I think there are some players that have shown so far that they're better than they were last year, and now we'll have to see when the competition gets stiffer how they react to that. But I think so far it's a nice start.
I made the comment to a friend of mine at the Bethune-Cookman game that I think Tony Perkins has a chance to be the best player on this team. Not that that's what these guys are going for, but and I say best player, maybe most important player. I think Philip Rebracha has a say in that as well, given I think maybe some concerns there with depth at the 5. What have you seen from Tony playing the point from a guy who did not play much point last year?
He's done a good job so far. I mean, he's definitely improved. He looks very comfortable out there. At times last year, maybe he didn't. But as we mentioned before, the true test will be when the competition gets stiffer. They put more heat on them, and the defenses are quicker and better and things like that. But I think everybody's got to be encouraged so far of what they've seen. He's definitely an improved player. Now we'll just see if he can continue that as the competition gets better.
Let's get to our first caller here, who is on hold. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Yeah, this is Pat from Minnesota.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, I thought the Hawks looked really good, too. I wanted to ask Coach Close, in terms of what the differences are between McCaffrey's press versus Tom Davis and Gary's press. I used to love Dr. Tom and Gary's press, and I think there's some similarities, but it just seems to me like McCaffrey has the talent to put on the Tom Davis and Gary's press. If he could just describe briefly what the difference is.
Yeah, that's a good question. We used a press similar to the one that Coach McCaffrey does. The alignment at times might be a little different, but basically a 3/4 court press that's looking for a potential trap at the half court, and just making teams handle the ball and try to disrupt their offense. The other press we probably used a little bit more than that was what we called 55, which was the full court press with our 4 up on the ball. That was Settles and Street
Yeah, that's
and
what I'm
Brad
talking about. That
Lowhouse
one, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a form of pressure to try to get teams to play faster than they were comfortable playing. Also in hopes to get turnovers and disrupt offense, but generally speaking, it was used to increase the tempo of the game, and so it was a press that Tom believed in, and we used a lot, and it oftentimes was very effective.
What was the lineup on that? Wasn't there a tall guy that was taking the guy who's in front of the guy throwing the ball from out of bounds? And then as soon as the ball was thrown in, weren't there 2 guards that immediately got on the guy with the ball?
Yeah, we had our 4 was basically like a lineman rushing the quarterback, trying to put as much pressure on the passer as possible. And then our 2 and 3 were the first 2 receivers or first 2 defenders in the front of the press. The 2 was to the left, the 3 was to the right, and they basically took the first two receivers that came open, and then the 1 was in the middle, and the 5 had the responsibility to protect the basket. And if we could get a trap up, we usually did, but it was what we refer to as a one and done, where once the trap was broken, we got back, so that we try to prevent teams from getting easy scores. So we rarely trapped more than once, unless it was a team that was really slow in terms of tempo, and we were able to get it and didn't look to try to attack and score like most teams in the Big Ten did.
Has anybody else ever used that press? I've never seen that before. Since then.
Yeah, there have been a few teams. Bruce Pearl has used it at Auburn and still does at times. He obviously was on the staff. Gary Williams, who worked with Coach at Lafayette and Boston College, he used it when he was at Ohio State and then at Maryland. Rick Pitino used it a lot. In fact, Rick always said that he got the defense from Tom when Rick was a coach at Boston University and Tom was the coach at Boston College. So it's not used as much now as it was in the past, but a few coaches have used it.
What's the reason for that? Why it's not used anymore, do you think?
I think it's just kind of a trend. I think in most cases, coaches are only going to do things that they're comfortable with and feel they're good at teaching. And if you're not around it and you haven't been taught it, then it's something you probably are not going to use. So like a lot of things, trends come and go. In the game of basketball as well as other sports, and so not used as much as it has been in the past.
Did Tom create that himself, or did he get that from somebody else?
No, actually, Tom did create that. Now, originally, he got into pressure defense watching the old UCLA teams with John Wooden, and John Wooden used a 3/4 court press like Coach McCaffrey does. Now, it was more of a 2-2-1 than a 1-2-1-1 that Iowa uses now. But Tom wanted that defense had a tendency to slow teams down, not speed them up. And he wanted to use a pressure defense that could speed teams up if he wanted to change the tempo in that respect. So he just basically kept the alignment the same, but just moved the 4 men up onto the ball. And it was a defense that teams tended to run on and play a little quick. And that was one of the objectives.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the show.
You bet. Thanks for the call.
Appreciate it, Pat.
A little basketball 101 there.
Yeah, that was great. Great, Pat bringing it and Coach Close bringing it back. I want to ask you about Peyton Sandfort because he had I don't know if this is a career high. I guess I didn't confirm this, but 17 points, 5 boards, 3 assists. Again, I know it's early. Competition has not been there necessarily, but seems like he's taken a step collectively. So far, knock on wood, defensively, he looks like he's improved. I don't know how much you can improve lateral quickness. Maybe you can speak to that, but also with his ability to play inside the arc, he's made some plays on the glass as well.
Yeah, I agree. He might be their most improved player to go along with Tony. And like you said, we'll have to wait and see how the season progresses with more competition. But I like the way he's playing. He's playing with confidence. He's got a terrific shot. He's not afraid to shoot it, and he'll keep shooting it, even if he gets a little bit of a dry spell. And he's added things to his game. He's not just the shooter. He's, he 5 rebounds today, so he's doing a little bit of rebounding, doing a little bit of passing. Like you said, his defense has improved, so he's on the right track. He's got a chance to be a really good player, and the good news is we got him for 3 more years. So it'll be a fun development to watch.
As a coach, Gary, put yourself in Fran's position, or think back to when you're at Wisconsin or when you were at Iowa. I'm sure there were games like this where your team, obviously the overwhelming favorite, and you get off to a start and you're just kind of sluggish through the first 5-10 minutes of the game, and then you come back and just lay the hammer down for the final 25 minutes of the game. How do you react to that as a coach? Is that something that you address? Is it just one of those things that, we're going to have this happen? How do you address that as a coach?
Well, I think it depends on the game. If it's a real lack of effort, then that might be something that you might address. If it's just being a little bit sloppy and not sticking to the game plan, then it might be something you touch on in the huddle. And but I think you got to try to you got to try to maintain your poise too as well, and you got a 40-minute game. Let's see how it progresses. You're gonna get lulls. There's no way you're gonna play great basketball for 40 minutes on every single game. It's just a question. Hey, can you get yourself righted and start playing better? And to their credit, they did. It took them a while to get started, but they eventually got it going and played pretty well.
Let's get to Tony, who's been on hold. Tony, welcome back to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Tony.
I had a question for you, Coach Close, and then a couple comments about the game. I remember back when you were on the coaching staff with Tom Davis, you guys used to do that farewell tour for the seniors. We'd stop at all the Iowa high schools. How did that come into life, I guess? What's the backstory behind that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was already in existence when we got there. It was a pretty unique time to be around Iowa basketball. We had the community scrimmages at the beginning of the year where we went to different parts of the state and played an inter-squad scrimmage that were very popular and well attended. And then they did this senior thing at the end. We had Randy Larson, which was a local lawyer in town who also ran the Primetime League, and he helped the seniors get organized in finding areas to play and scheduling games. And it was a nice little fundraiser for the seniors going out to put a little money in their pockets before they head out into the real world. And it was very popular and very well attended. I don't know how it all ended. Probably just like a lot of things, just kind of fizzled out. But there was a time there where you're right. It was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I remember going to a couple of those. I was going in high school, 97 through 01. So, and I remember going to those. They were awesome. To the game, we played sloppily, like you could say, but our backcourt only had 1 turnover to 18 assists. They took care of the ball. I mean, we only had 4 total team turnovers. And, we did not play our best, but we at least took care of the basketball.
Yeah, and games like that, that's probably where you see it the first, is where people start getting sloppy with the ball and take chances with passes and drive into areas that are not open. And we've mentioned it before, Corey, that Iowa is very remarkable in how they take care of the ball, with how fast they play and how many points they score. To be able to have 4 turnovers and score, or whatever it was, 117 points, that's pretty impressive. So, and it's going to be real important when they get into games where the competition is stiff, because turnovers can really, really hurt you. They can put a knot on your head if you're not watching out what you're doing. And well, even North Carolina A&T had some turnovers that just turned right into points for Iowa. So that's a real strength of the team. And I think you'll see that in most good teams, that's usually a characteristic, that they do a pretty good job of taking care of the ball.
And let me just add to that too. Tony Perkins, who again consider him a first-year point guard. No turnovers tonight, and on Monday he had 1.
Yeah.
Again, competition aside, I think there will be, I would guess there'll be some growing pains there, Tony, as it relates to the other Tony at the point guard position. But yeah, he's taking care of the ball. What more do you want?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a real important part of successful teams. You want to get shots up. And if the way turnovers can kill you, not only are the points that you don't get, but in a lot of cases is the points you give the other team by giving them an easy basket. And so we used to refer to them as, 4, 5, 6 point plays that, a 2 or 3 that you might have gotten, and then you give up a 2 or 3. And it always seems when you turn the ball over, when the other team goes down and shoot, it always goes in. And very, very rarely, it's just kind of the way the basketball guys just get you. So this team has characteristically been very good with turnovers, and that will help as they get into the Big Ten season.
Yeah, and like you said, it's impressive with the pace of play that they use.
No
they
doubt.
Still only have 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
They're going up and down, and I think every player has the green light at almost any time. And,
well, they're fundamentally sound. They don't dribble balls into areas where there's trouble. They do a good job of getting the right passing lanes and pass faking to open up spots, and they meet passes. They're fundamentally sound as far as that goes, and that's one of the reasons why they take care of the ball. I'm sure they also preach it as well, but you think all teams would be like that, but that's not the case, and a lot of teams don't work on it like some other teams do. And usually the teams that do work on it are the ones that are better at keeping those numbers down.
And I can kind of compare it to this, and Tony, some people may not agree with this comment, but you look at what Phil Parker does on the football side of things defensively. I mean, not only is he, I give the Ohio State game as a perfect example. Not only is he dealing with an offense that's not doing anything, but he's holding Ohio State down on the ground. He's, limiting big plays game after game. He creates turnovers. I mean, that's kind of with Fran. I mean, he's running this high octane offense. You'd expect there to be some hiccups in there, but offensively, like Coach Close said, he's just everything is running like a well-oiled machine at this point. And it was last year. I mean, we could say the same thing last year. You lose Luka Garza, and you kind of just plug and play, regardless of who's running the show at point. They don't turn the ball over. They're efficient. So. You kind of know it. That's the thing, Coach, and maybe you can expound on this. I just don't really worry too much offensively. It's kind of the same thing I say with Iowa football year after year. You expect them to reload, and regardless of you lose a lottery pick in Keegan Murray, you're coming 2 years removed from losing Luka Garza. You just kind of expect Fran to figure it out on that end. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I think there's some truth to it. I think the interesting thing will be, as we talk about, is that as the competition gets better, what's going to happen is their transition opportunities are going to be a lot less. And are they going to be able to be effective and score in the half court, which is going to happen a lot in the Big Ten. It's going to happen a lot when they play better teams. Right now, the 2 teams that they have played have given them very little resistance in terms of transition baskets. And so it's been pretty easy to score. And when it's easy to score, there's probably less chances of you turn the ball over. When it gets to be more of a grinding game where the transition opportunities are less and they're forced to execute in their half court, that's when they'll be put to the test. And but they've shown in the past they've been able to handle. We'll just have to wait and see what it'll be like when we get into better competition, which could start as early as this next coming week. So it should be fun to watch.
I'll just close with something quick, kind of add on to what Corey said. A team that probably plays a similar style of basketball to us is like Creighton. They played North Dakota last night. They had 11 turnovers, and they still play at that same. In that, like you mentioned, Fran does it so efficiently, just like Phil Parker does on defense for the football team.
That's a good point.
Look forward to seeing you guys the rest of the year, and I'll call back in after the game at Seton Hall. Hopefully,
that's a nice looking sweatshirt. That looks like one of the old Iowa logos right there. Yeah, I recognize that, baby.
Yeah. Have a good show. Thanks for your time, guys.
You bet.
I just sent an email back to the university. They only released second half stats in their official box score. So trying to get that information. I'm curious. I don't know if it's on that. Maybe you know this, Gary. I don't know that fast break points. Are they included on an official NCAA box score sheet?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fast break back.
I'd be curious to see that because what you said does make sense, and I'd be curious to look at both of these games. I would say the majority of points scored were in transition, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that just feels like that.
Especially tonight. Tonight, that team was not a very good defensive team. There was not a whole. One of the things you look at defensively is, you're not going to shut people out, but are you at least making them make tough shots? And Iowa did not have very many tough shots tonight. There were a lot of easy, wide open looks that, to their credit, they moved the ball and got them, but the resistance wasn't very good.
Before we move on with substance, Gary, what did you pay? Did you slip a 20 in Jess Settle's pocket to keep?
Jess Settles is amazing, isn't he?
My
goodness.
I think you slipped him a 20. That's what I think. I think Doug brings. I didn't hear this.
I texted him during the game. I said, he mentioned me. He mentioned my son being a man. I said, my daughter is really upset that you haven't mentioned her. And then he puts in that thing about golf.
I must have missed the comment about your daughter being a good golfer. I must have missed that comment. When was that?
You must have. Yeah, it was there. You were probably going off to get a beer or something at a break. And
I was actually. But no, I will say this about Jess Settles. It's nice having him on the BTN Plus airing because and I know that used to just be UI students that were, I'm assuming, in broadcasting students that did that broadcast, and I still am amazed. I'm not trying to segue, but I'm still amazed at some of the issues with BTN Plus and their production crew, but we won't get into that at this point.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, but at least we're getting to watch it. I mean,
that's right. And we're going to get
alternative not being able to see it wouldn't be as good, but I agree.
FS1 for Seton Hall, and of course we'll touch on that towards the end. Bryce Beckett, appreciate the super chat. Bryce, he says, "Hey Corey, I'm coming home right now. Just wanted to say the crowd went crazy when Ogundele stepped on the court, and Riley was amazing. Good to hear that. I am still, as I've said to you, Gary, and you're going to tell me relax, but as you know, I'm a little bit concerned with depth behind Rebraca, and there's no question Iowa went small ball early. Were you at all surprised? Maybe it's just matchups here." But, and I have this noted here, Iowa went with the lineup super early in this game of Ulis, Bowen, Connor, Patrick, and Rebraca. That's about as small as you can go, isn't it? I mean, were you surprised by that, and is that more of a result of opponent?
I think it's more the opponent. Yeah, they were pretty small and quick, and I think probably from a defensive standpoint, he's trying to match up a little bit better. So I'm guessing that was the reason.
So what have you seen from, I know it's early. Everything we're talking about, we know you take it with a grain of salt, but what have you seen from Ogundele? And, Mulvey's barely playing right now. And if he's barely playing against the Bethune-Cookmans of the world, I just don't know how he's going to be seeing minutes once we get into heavy play. And Ogundele didn't see the court tonight until the second half.
Yeah. I think what they're going to do is what they're doing now. They're going to throw those guys in there and see if they show some signs. And if they do, they'll get a few more minutes. If they don't, they won't. So I think the jury's out on both of them. Obviously, Ogundele is getting the first look over Mulvey in the pecking order, but that's still a question to be answered. I think you're right. That area, the depth behind the post position is one that's obviously evident, and we'll have to see what happens. They may have to mix and match and get through it without it, kind of like what they did last year.
And at least from my perspective, Gary, my first reaction when I see a situation like Iowa's, and I called, was it a week ago? I called Rebraca probably Iowa's most indispensable player. You may not agree with that. I just don't know who else you'd pick at this point. Yes, I mean, and I don't know that there's a ton proven right now at point guard if Tony goes down. I mean, Aaron played last year, and DeSante's got promise. But, boy, the struggles with development at the 5 are well documented. So I think Rebraca's health is of utmost importance. My concern, Gary, is what happens when he gets into foul trouble, because these early opponents are not testing them in that regard. What happens when he picks up 2 in the first half and Fran's got his motto of getting that guy out and for the remainder of the half? I mean, is foul trouble?
Yeah, they'll have to mix and match. I think that's one area that in terms of their depth, coming on the bench. Obviously, you can count on Connor. Connor played some 4 tonight. So I guess he would be the one that would be the first one in, and they would just, match up with that group without, without Roch in there. But I think overall their depth is something they got to continue to develop. It's not there yet, but it's early. I mean, it's only the second game of the year, but they don't look quite as deep as they did last year at this time, although that could change quickly.
Would you agree with that comment, though, that Robracha may be the most important player for this team?
He's certainly one of them. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, obviously they lost Murray. Any of those top guys would be a big blow. They're not real deep, but a lot of teams aren't real deep yet. Now that's what the non-conference is kind of all about. It's just to give them some minutes, see who plays well, what are they doing in practice, and build their confidence and see if they can give you some quality minutes. I think so far the jury's still out, but it's early.
ZJ brings up always fun to hear Kingsbury for 3. He's got a good I mean, this isn't a surprise to you, Gary, obviously, but he's got a good stroke. It's improved since last year. Maybe it's just confidence. I recall a couple of years back when Iowa was really thin due to injury. I think Cordell Pemsl, if I recall, was a game at Indiana, and I think Pemsl was maybe suspended for a game, and Austin Ash had to come in and play real minutes in Bloomington. And I look at what Iowa has on the bench from guys who are walk-ons. Certainly, I'm not saying that Kingsbury is going to be even the 11th or 12th guy off the bench, but with injuries and foul trouble, he's a guy who could potentially maybe see some time just because he appears like kind of like that Austin Ash effect. He can give you threes. Defensively, that's probably the biggest question mark. Do you agree with that, or how do you assess the walk-ons?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's you're always looking at that because you never know. You get injuries. I mean, it's depth is always a concern, and so you're always looking to see how players are practicing and what they do when they get into a game like that. He played well. It's not garbage time. That's one of the reasons you schedule some of these teams early, is because you want to give your bench a chance to play and see what they've got, so that down the road, if you need them, they've had a chance to play a little bit. If you're his objective is to keep doing that in practice, and then when he gets opportunities in games to show something, and then you gain the confidence of the coaching staff, and then if something were to happen, maybe he gets an opportunity. So you got to be prepared. You never know.
And I would say the same thing. We haven't seen him, but Amarion Nimmers is not your typical walk-on, but he's been hurt and we haven't seen him. So I don't know how close he is to getting back, but he's a guy who had opportunities to be on scholarship at other D1 schools. So interesting to see once he gets back to full health. ZJ brings up the flopping rules, which I had written down as a question for you as well. What are your thoughts on that rule? We saw it enacted today.
Yeah, I didn't even know that rule was in effect. Yeah, I'm not sure. They better make sure. I mean, that one, I didn't think that looked like a flop in terms of getting a technical foul. I thought he hit him pretty good, but so that'll be an interesting one to watch. He called that thing quickly, I'm not a big proponent of flopping, that's for sure. So if that's a way they can get flopping out of the game, that'd be great. I think it does put a little pressure on the officials, but they're making big money, so put a little pressure on them.
Well, here's one thought, Gary, and maybe we don't want to slow down the game more, but in football, you have a targeting penalty, which is a significant penalty, not only because you have a 15-yard personal foul, but of course the guy gets tossed. I would say this is a pretty significant call, especially if it comes at a big point in the game, giving a guy a free throw. Is it a situation where maybe you look at it on replay? Any flop call should be reviewed. Would you be in favor of that, or does that slow the game down too much?
Yeah, I think that slows it down a little bit. Maybe in the last 2 minutes or something, if the game's on the line or something like that. But I don't think it's going to be called a lot. I was surprised it was called there. We'll have to wait and see. I'll be curious myself if that's the case. And maybe it will be. I mean, there are always rules each year that they say they're going to emphasize, and maybe that was one of them. And that's why he called that thing so quickly. But a lot of times that happens in the beginning of the year. And then once you get into the year, that stops being called. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if that's sustains itself.
You're going to have to answer this question because I really don't even know what this means. Maybe it's because I'm too young. Doug says, Coach, what happened to exhibition games against athletes in action and marathon oil?
Yeah, there used to be teams like that you would because you weren't allowed to you weren't allowed to have close scrimmages that they have now, things like that. You weren't allowed to play exhibition games. You just weren't allowed. So you had to go find these types of games. Our first year at Iowa in '86, we played the Soviet Union in an exhibition game on ESPN. It was the top Soviet Union team. They had everybody, Sabonis and Marciulionis, and it was a big time game.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those were exhibition games where foreign teams came over and played you, in addition to athletes in action and marathon oil and teams like that. It's pretty much all gone by the wayside now that you're allowed to have exhibition games in addition to close scrimmages. So like a lot of things, like the senior games and things like that, just with time, they kind of fade away.
All right, let's get to our next caller. James, welcome back to the show, James.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Hi, James.
First off, I wanted to say this: Michigan game's fun to watch right now. They're down 1 to Eastern. They're down 1 to Eastern, but it's like every shot they hit, Eastern hits a shot. So it's like going back and forth right now.
Eastern who?
Michigan.
Oh, Eastern Michigan. Okay.
Eastern Michigan. Michigan State almost got a great win tonight.
Yeah.
Eastern Michigan up 57-56 midway through the second half. And, of course, Michigan preseason ranked 22nd in the country right now. Yeah. And I saw, speaking of Michigan, Michigan State blow.
Yeah, I saw that game too.
They played well. They played very well. Gonzaga's good. That was a tough loss for them, but they played real well.
But one thing, okay, so I am kind of going to tell you a story a little bit. You were talking about, like, players have to step up, like, players have to step up. So, like, at school I coached at, like, our first game last year, right? We had a freshman who we weren't going to play at all. Does that make sense? Like, for, like, the first 5 games or whatever.
Okay. Last year?
I'm talking about, I coached basketball. We had somebody we had 2 players who got in foul trouble, right? So to play this kid, we were down 11 the first game of the year with like 2 minutes left. We came back. We were down 8. He comes in the game, hits a 3. The ball gets stolen, rolls right back to him, hits another 3. So we're down 2. And then we come down, hit a layup, and tie the game up and send it to overtime. So that's my point. Your point of like saying like you never know who's gonna have to step up for you, and the fact of like foul trouble or like.
You should have got him in the game earlier.
Yeah, he can all last year he could only hit 3s in the fourth quarter. If it wasn't the fourth quarter, he wasn't able to hit them. He missed everything like the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter he could hit 3s after that. So I was like, I don't know what's happening with him. Like, must just be ready for the prime time. But
sounds like a good win.
But the one thing that kind of hurts me, or like I noticed in the fact that I think it's going to hurt us in the long run is rebounding. We only rebounded them by 2.
Yeah, well, it's always been a bit of a problem, and it's one they kind of shored up last year. So it's something to definitely watch because the rebounding goes along with defense. If you can't rebound the ball, then your defense isn't going to be as good. And when they get into the league and into tougher non-conference opponents, or they're going to rebound better and they're going to be bigger and more physical and more athletic, that could be exposed. So it's something we'll have to watch because they have struggled in that in the past at times.
Just real quick, I know this doesn't, debunk what you're saying, James, because you're absolutely right. I had written down defense and rebounding, especially in the first 10 to 15 minutes. If I'm Fran McCaffrey, it was unacceptable. But Iowa for the game did take 12 more shots than North Carolina A&T. So there's going to be a discrepancy based solely on that. Am I right, Gary?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
if you're turning the ball over a lot, you're giving the team, more shots and what goes along with that, there could be more misses and there's more opportunity for rebounds and things like that. So, yeah.
But it's also size because, like obviously Bethune-Cookman, North Carolina A&T, I think we play is it Eastern Illinois later on in the year or whatever. Like they don't have the size obviously that like Seton Hall is gonna have or a Clemson's gonna have. You know what I'm saying? So like for that, it's like you don't know what's gonna happen when you get in those situations. Like
what's great about it, James, is that we unlike last year where you're having to wait 3-4 weeks before you get a game to really test you. We're going to see it on Wednesday. I mean, we're going to get a test, and then they've got more tests down the line. So that's I prefer that, and I'm guessing the players and maybe the coaching staff prefers that as well. Let's get that out of the way, and they're going to get to do it on the road.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what you want to do is you want to find out where you're weak before the Big Ten season rolls around, and good teams will expose weaknesses. It might, like James, it might be rebounding. It might be guarding dribble penetration. It might be, things like that get exposed by better team. Might be post defense, and good teams will show that, and that's what you want to find out. You'd like to be able to win while you're finding it out, but that's part of the non-conference schedule is to discover where your weaknesses are so you can correct them before league games roll around.
One thing I noticed too is I feel like this team, obviously with Luka, Luka was one of the greatest soccer players I've ever seen with my own eyes, right? I'm not debunking that, but it just seemed like when we threw the ball to him, sometimes there'd be 3 guys around him, he would just shoot it up and it's somebody wide open in the corner. You know what I'm saying? And then he'd miss it and then get the rebound and then put it back up again. This team seems like they don't really focus. They try to get the open shot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The last 2 years, teams have been really good passing teams, and they've been unselfish and they've made extra passes, and it's fun to watch. You've got a good shot, but the guy next to you's got an even better one. That ball's got to go to him, and your percentages will dictate that. So hopefully they can keep that going, because they've been a really good passing team the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. One question I have though is like obviously Corey already said it. So rebounding I think is already going to be an issue already. But then if you're playing the non-conference games like Seton Hall, Clemson, even Iowa State, because they got Robert Jones, who's kind of big. If Philip gets in trouble, then is our rebounding going to go all the way down? You know what I'm saying? That's the thing I get worried about. Are we going to get super out rebounded with Philip going down? Because we sometimes get close to out rebounded with him in the game. So if he gets in foul trouble and comes out, is it going to be a really bad disadvantage? Or what do you think?
Well, it could be. I don't think there's any question. He's probably, along with Chris, probably our leading rebounder, one of our best rebounders. So for sure, that would be an area to look at. I don't think there's any question if he's not in there for big minutes, it could definitely affect the rebound.
One more question, a couple more questions, but one more question, big question, Corey. What's one thing you're looking at against Seton Hall and Clemson? What are the 2 main things you want to look at? Obviously it's a step up in competition. So I want, even for you, Gary, what's the one thing you guys are looking at as that? It's going to be a big step up for us. It's going to be a test for us so we can see where we're at. But what's the things that would stand out to you that you want to look at?
Well, I mentioned it before. I think when they go up against teams that can stop them in transition to where they don't get all those easy, quick baskets, are they going to be able to be efficient and score in the half court? And I think that usually is one of the things that comes last is your half court offense with the timing and things like that. So I think that's one area I will look at is if teams can cut down on their transition opportunities, are they going to be able to be effective in the half court? Because I think good teams will make them do that.
And I would echo that, James. And I think just the rebounding battles, you brought it up. I mean, that's when you go up against Power 5 competition, because as you know, some of the best big men in the country are in the Big Ten, whether you're talking about Zach Edey or Trace Jackson Davis or
Hunter Dickinson.
Rutgers. I did look at the Seton Hall box score, and they Monmouth, who got beat by 27, actually was basically even on rebounding, and turned Seton Hall over 20 times in that game. So, maybe some sloppy play from the Pirates. They do play. Interestingly enough, Seton Hall plays St. Peter's. Yeah, I believe that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So now I know St. Peter's is a different team than they were in the tournament last year, but that should be an interesting one to follow. Yeah. Leading up to the Wednesday.
And they have the old St. Peter's coach at Seton Hall now. That's why they're playing him, because Shaheem Holloway's there.
Right.
So that's why they're playing him.
Yeah, good call.
But they did. I watched a little bit of that game because I was kind of intrigued, just to watch him because I knew we played him coming up. And they did look sloppy at first. It looked like it's going to take him a little bit just to get, because the new coach is kind of hard to get. You got to transfer, so it's kind of hard to get, down right away. Especially, and Iowa's had the same coach for how long. you're bringing in a new guy with transfer, so sometimes it's hard to get going right away. And it looked like for them, it was just a struggle all game really to get it going. I just think they definitely had better athletes because they're Big East squad. They definitely had better athletes than Mama, so they just kind of out-athleted them, if that makes sense.
Yep.
It wasn't like they played much better; they just out-athleted them.
Sure.
But
the interesting thing will be is if they try to run with Iowa, because if you do that, you're really rolling the dice, even with them being at home. And I'm guessing they will, because that's kind of the way he's coached in the past. So, obviously North Carolina A&T tried to do that tonight, and you saw what happened to them. Now, Seton Hall's always got better talent, but teams that want to run with Iowa, they got to do it with a lot of caution, because they're playing right into their hands by doing that. And not that they can't beat them, but it's a risk.
Just real quick, and then we can let you slide, James. Early prediction: I think Iowa wins that game. And I haven't even seen. Maybe I shouldn't even say that because I haven't watched Seton Hall yet. But I'm just looking through them. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me here. But I'm just looking through. They struggled from the free throw line against Monmouth. They didn't really dominate on the glass. They turned the ball over a bunch. They're under a first-year head coach. I don't know. I just have a feeling that Iowa may get them, which would be a great win on the road at Seton Hall. So,
from what I saw, I kind of agree with you on that. Like from what I saw and the way Iowa's played, but obviously Iowa hasn't played. I think Monmouth might be better than both the teams Iowa played, so it's kind of hard for us to say, "Oh, well, you can't use that as a thing." But it's gonna be interesting to see, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for sure. Hopefully, we can pull one off tomorrow because Highland Trophy ain't been in Iowa City very much, so hopefully we can pull one off tomorrow and. We'll see what happens, but I hope you guys enjoy your night, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, how about the Iowa-Wisconsin game tomorrow? Once again, you're torn.
That's a big game. That's a big game.
Seems like it is every year.
First team to 14 wins.
Yeah. I've got Iowa 17 I've got Wisconsin 17-10. So.
Oh, Corey, that's unbelievable. I can't believe you. There go our ratings. They just went down the tubes.
Hey, I already said it on the authenticity. Now, Tony says, I was wondering when we would hear the first relax of the year. So there you go. There you have it. Let's get to our caller who's been on hold for quite some time. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close, who's on the line.
There you go. Hi, Corey. It's Ryan from McGregor. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. How are you, sir?
I'm not doing too bad. I have a philosophical question for you guys. And Coach Close, it's very nice to talk with you. I didn't really remember you that well. And my wife and I are sitting here watching the show, and you started answering some of these questions on the press and everything. And my wife turns to me and goes, "Well, now I know why Corey's so excited to have him on the show." So we're really appreciating your comment. My philosophical question is, Fran said something really subtle, and that was that he called it positionless basketball at Iowa. And I thought that was very interesting because I didn't think Fran was a good fit when he was hired by Gary Barta to Iowa, because the Big Ten traditionally has been a defensive league and a physical league, much like football. And Fran's style is more up and down and less defensive and more offensive and kind of NBA-like in his philosophy. And I thought maybe he was a hire that was just there to, be competitive in the Big Ten and maybe get to 20 wins by playing cupcakes and then, get lucky in the tournament. And that's kind of how I viewed it. But I think I'm short selling Fran. And I think that he's more of an innovative mind than what we give him credit for. And so when Corey was discussing, the 5 position, Rubacha, and the rebounding and all that, yeah, that's a real big problem in Iowa when we go up against Michigan State, who is that traditional power, the power game defense. Bo Ryan was that way, and nobody liked to play Wisconsin. And here comes Fran, and we play really well against a lot of teams. And then we get up against we're in a game where there's a lot of defense that's played well, and we seem to fall down or fall short. So I don't know a lot about basketball. You tripled my IQ on it in this show. Appreciate your comments. And
you better keep watching then.
That's my take on it. So,
hey, real quick, you're from McGregor, isn't that? I've had this discussion, but that's pretty close to Wisconsin, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm actually looking at the Mississippi River out my window, Corey. So, I mean, yeah, I would say Wisconsin's right across the river. So,
are you familiar with McGregor, Iowa, Gary?
No, not really.
Okay.
Is that up by
Play?
Prairie Sheen up in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly where it's at.
Okay. Gotcha. Nice
Well,
area of the state.
Call your bluff, because that's what we have here. So McGregor, let us call your bluff. That's a pretty good one. It'll surprise you. It's a nice place. We have a festival of trees coming up here the first weekend in December. A wonderful event. So if anybody's in the area, they should stop over. You can get a Christmas tree and vote on your favorite. So
yeah, right.
Nice.
Ryan, who's in our chat, says that McGregor is Rafe LaFrent's country. Is that true?
That's probably close.
Rafe LaFrent's kid.
Rafe was from Winona.
Winona?
Oh, is that right? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's right. I've forgotten that. I'm not from here originally, but yeah, Monona's not that far away. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, appreciate you calling in. You got anything else for Coach Close?
No, I just wondered about this philosophical thing, because I do think for recruiting, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that Iowa can get a big man, or that like in football we develop a lot of players. I mean, it's obvious Fran has done that. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, with a lot of the former players. So I'm just going to enjoy the show, and I'll sign off. But thanks, Corey.
Thank you,
Taking
Ryan.
my call.
You bet.
Good calls here, bringing it so far. I mean, game 2 of the season, Gary.
MFL Marmac. That's where Rafe went to high school.
That's exactly what Ryan actually just said. Commented in the chat. MFL Marmac. I'd never heard of that, but I'll take your word for it. Caller, I'm
a few trips up there in vain.
But so what year was that? Do you remember? What cycle?
That was like in the early 90s, 93, 94, somewhere in there.
Did you guys ever feel like you had a shot there?
No, I really didn't. I didn't get, he didn't, one of those ones where he really didn't get good vibes. We worked hard. I think he wanted out of the state. Now when he did make his visit, I thought we made up a lot of ground. I think we definitely had him thinking, but I think we had a long way to. Everybody assumed because he was from Iowa, he was going to go to Iowa, and that just wasn't the case. He was a kid that was looking to go out of state right from the get-go.
That was
a terrific player and a great kid. I mean, everybody's got their own, their own desires, and he had a terrific career at Kansas. Ironically, I ended up doing his wife. Texted me not too long ago. I ended up doing a basketball shooting clinic camp up in that area, and he came and helped out, and we reminisced a little bit. But
wow.
Really, really, really good player. He
yeah.
played on the same AU team with Ryan Bowen and Kent McCausland, and was coached by Kent's dad, and everybody just assumed that all of them were coming to Iowa, and we got 2 of the 3, but not the big prize.
And was Kirk Heinrich after you?
Yeah, Kirk was there, and but it was a little bit later. I thought we had a chance at getting him when he left. Did he leave? Where he left? He left Kansas. He went to Kansas. And that was the whole Nick Collison thing, where I thought we were going to get Nick Collison, and then our contract wasn't renewed. And so Nick, he hadn't committed, but he had pretty much committed. So he decided to go to Kansas, and Heinrich fought him there. I think if Nick had been here, I think Heinrich would have come to Iowa, but that's just a guess.
Fascinating stuff. Those are the three guys I always think of, and maybe you do as well. Just how maybe Iowa basketball history in the 90s would have changed if you.
Yeah, really good players. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nick Collison was a terrific player. His dad was a great high school coach. We got on him early. I know we were in great shape, but the problem was when it was time for him to make the decision, there was a coaching change, and then with that, he went to Kansas.
And those are all guys who succeeded in the NBA more than succeeded.
Good players. Yeah, no doubt.
Every one of them. Mm-hmm. So we've got a few callers, and we're trying to keep this close to an hour. So let's get to Ryan, who's been on hold for quite some time. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how you doing, Coach Close? Yeah, Corey, I got a bone to pick with you, man. But first, Coach Close, for this basketball team, and I did not get to watch tonight. I listened to it. It's probably the only game since that Northwestern State debacle that I literally didn't watch. How do you feel that, the Big Ten is kind of down this year? You got 13th ranked Indiana, I think 23rd and 24th or something like that is a couple other teams, Illinois and somebody else. But what do you feel is the ceiling of this season for the basketball team? You were talking about rebounding. I assume probably correlates with lack of size, and going after Phillip would be a pretty intelligent plan from a coach. Once we get into Big Ten season, Josh has got a great big body. Riley's pretty, he's a talented guy. I don't know if they're exactly ready for that kind of rigor. Do we just outshoot everyone and try to out-athlete everyone? That being said, where do you think's our ceiling? Can this be, the first time since 1979 that we won the Big Ten? Now, I think back, Corey was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school in 1987 when George Raveling left and Tom Davis and yourself, Bruce Pearl, and another gentleman whose name escapes me took
Rudy Washington.
Rudy Washington. Was he on the original staff from Tom Davis?
He was on Coach Raveling's staff. Yeah, we kept him.
Okay. Thank you. And he went off to Drake for a while.
Yes, he did.
So you guys, and this is no knock on anybody, but you probably inherited the most talented roster that a coach left, maybe in history. There were 7 NBA guys on that team: Horton, Marble, Armstrong, Gamble, Lojas, Bill Jones, and Les Jepson. So on that one team, and I remember, and I totally forgot about it, but that rushing game, it was that exhibition before 87, and I think we lost by 1 point, maybe 2. It was within one possession. And that was like an Olympic team, and we lost. And, of course, I was 12, and I was just irate we lost that game. And I was scared for the season, and I think we were 18-0 after coming back at Illinois by 22. But anyway, I digress. Can you please just give me how far can Iowa go, in your opinion, this season?
Well, it's a real difficult question. This early in the year, I think they've got potential. The league, everybody thinks the league is down, and a lot of teams did lose a lot of players, but it's early. I mean, even tonight, Michigan State almost beats the number 2 ranked team in the country, and Michigan State's not ranked and lost a lot of players. A lot of teams lost a lot of players. That's why the league is not is not as highly thought of, but they don't know the young players that are coming in. And so until you get a look at what everybody's got and how they're playing, it's pretty hard to predict. But I think Iowa's got a chance if they improve. They don't get any significant injuries. They got a chance to compete for a Big Ten championship. But you probably could say that about 5 or 6 or 7 other teams, maybe more, because I think the league is really wide open this year with what everybody has lost and the question marks that everybody's got from playing guys that have not played in this league yet. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, but until we see them play, in Big Ten games and games like that, we really don't know. So, but they've got the makings of a nice team, but they're going to have to get better, like everybody else. But I think if they do, and they can avoid serious injuries, I think they got a shot.
And I think a guy like Peyton Sanford is really gonna. I'm a huge Tony Perkins guy, and I think between those two, beyond Patrick and Chris, who are more well-established players, if you will, I think the sky could be the limit. It will be interesting to see how Fran tightens that lineup as Duke, Ames College, and Clemson, some of the tougher preseason games go. I know we got to play Wisconsin pretty early in the season. They're always tough. God, I hate them. Sorry, Coach Close. Always loved you, but God dang it, I hate them. I mean, come on, man.
There you go.
But okay. That being said, there's a football game I understand tomorrow, Coach Close. Do you have a rooting interest or not?
That's a good question. I'm hoping for a real good, exciting game, right down to the wire.
I think I know who Coach is rooting for. I'd like to think that you probably weren't a big fan of Wisconsin firing Christ, which makes me believe that you were absolutely rooting for Iowa tomorrow.
You might be on track there a little bit.
How about basketball, Coach Close?
How about basketball?
Iowa, Wisconsin.
Iowa, Wisconsin.
What is it?
13
years in Iowa City and 14 years in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
13 in Madison too.
So 13 each. You're like
13 each.
Wow.
Well, I got a son in the program now, so I got to kind of side with the Hawks because of that.
And Bo is not coaching Wisconsin anymore, Ryan. So
he's not.
Bo's not coaching Wisconsin anymore.
He's not.
I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm behind.
Dude, okay. I swear I saw Steve Yoder last weekend when they were playing.
Steve Yoder?
Steve's a good man.
Well, you remember him, Corey. I mean, you're my age.
Yeah. We're just real close in age. Brian, I will. I'm sorry.
Hey, by the way, Corey, my little beef.
Yeah,
1710 Wisconsin. Are you kidding me? I mean,
I call it like I see it, brother. I don't want to see it.
Give me a break. Oh, in front of Coach Patterson and everything. I am going to call you out tomorrow night.
That's fine.
I'll be nice about it, brother, but
it's fine. I want to see Iowa run against a decent front. When they can do that, I'll be convinced that they can run against Wisconsin. But they have not run against a decent front, and Spencer Petras has not thrown against a non-shell of itself secondary yet. So if that happens tomorrow, I will be that much closer to being bought in. But they got to
don't be wearing any red tomorrow.
I don't wear. Yeah, I won't. People already gave me a hard time. Yeah.
All right, and Coach Close, I'm just going to leave it with one last thing. Every time I think of you, I think of Chris Street. And, in 1993, we know what happened. I just really, really get emotional every time I think about Chris Street. He probably always will be my most favorite Iowa Hawkeye basketball player of all time. There was no way anybody could beat Roy Marble. Nobody. And about 2 months before it happened, I declared Chris Street my favorite Iowa player of all time. You brought him here. I know he probably would have come anyway, but you were the cherry on top for him for sure. And, I met his parents a few times, and they've raved about the human being you are. I know it probably sucked having to coach against us in the Chris Street 20-year reunion game, if you can comment about that.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey, I'll be ready to serve some humble pie up to you tomorrow.
There we go.
I'm going to tell you right now, you don't trust Brian Ferentz, and neither do I, but it doesn't matter. 17-13 Iowa. They ain't scoring at Kinnick. The lights go down at about 4 o'clock this time of the year, and you know that place is going to be intoxicated with Hawkaholic love.
Ryan, we'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
That sounds good.
You want to comment real quickly? I know we're running short on time here, and we got
those were nice comments about Chris. Yeah, I got to see Mike and Patty at the game Monday night. It was good to see him again, and he was a terrific Hawk. There was not many better than him. He brought it each and every night. So I appreciate his thoughts.
All right, we've got to kind of go a little bit up tempo, as they would say. We're not on the football field, but we're going to try to go up tempo here with our final couple of calls here. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Lemansky on the phone, Corey.
Lemansky, you sound sick, Lemansky.
I am, but it doesn't stop me from following your show because you are a bright, talented young man. You've got expert wingmen in football and basketball, and I compliment you so much. I've never really had much to talk to you about that would be you're taking big bullets because you're climbing the mountain, you're popular, you're getting California calls, your reputation is spreading nationwide, but thank God you got Gary Close. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think we had one
wow.
California the other day, Lemansky.
This guy gets to come in right away when he calls.
Lemansky's up from up your neck of the woods. Aren't you in Wisconsin, Lemansky?
Yeah, I'm around La Crosse, but I know where the hell McGregor, Marquette, and MFL are, and I've got a little friend story, but I gotta compliment Gary Close because Don Patterson's a Texas gentleman, Corey, and he kind of, he's got something to say, but he's on the air nationwide. But Gary's been a scrapper in the coaching league, and he's got one technical in his lifetime, I think, on the bench, and he'll challenge you, Corey. And I just hold that so near and dear to my heart because, Corey, go and Google Roy Williams.
Okay.
I'm sure you know who Roy Williams is.
Are we talking about the Roy Williams, North Carolina Roy
Williams? The
Williams?
One and only Roy Williams.
Okay.
You should hate his guts.
Okay.
You know why you should hate his guts?
I know. You tell me.
Well, you always talk about the here and now, which I think I'm old, and why should I call it? I don't know a damn thing. And then Gary gets on here with all this history. And he's humble. He recruited against maybe the best recruiter in college basketball, the Blue Bloods or Duke in North Carolina. He goes up against Roy Williams and Rafe LaFrentz in the middle of nowhere. Johnny Orr flies in to recruit Rafe LaFrentz, and Gary doesn't get him. But Gary went up against the number one recruiter in basketball. Roy Williams is the guy to blame for all these near misses in this Iowa recruiting. When Roy Williams left Kansas, I got drunk. I thought it was the greatest day of my life. He hurt us, didn't he, Gary?
Yeah. Well, he had it going down there. That's for sure. Yep. And he knew good talent when he saw it, and he was a good recruiter. No doubt about it.
And so I'm glad you're here to kind of, what's the right word with your tag team with Corey? Are you a buffer? Are you the wise man in case he missteps? You correct his direction, but I'm going to tell you Rafe LaFrentz story, and then I'm going to get off here because it's quite the story. So go ahead, Corey. You want to say something?
No, I was going to say Gary's the educator here. That was just filling in the blank. Go ahead, Lemansky.
Well, you're a fast riser. Gary's got you, so he keeps you between the rails. But Johnny Orr is going to fly into MFL Marmac. Now, that's a town of 2,000 people. Every town in Northeast Iowa is rural except Luther College and Decorah. The airport, you can hardly land a 2-seater plane. It's the worst, foggiest night in November. And there's a banker from Owine that was a big donator to the Cyclones. And here comes Johnny Orr scheduled to fly in. And he's got season tickets. And he's get to meet Johnny Orr. And he gets a last-minute call. And Johnny can't make it. They won't fly out of Ames to get him to MFL Marmac. So the president of this bank is from Owine, Iowa. He talks to my egg lender friend that, he's just a farm kid, egg lender. He says, you pick up this assistant coach. Who knows who's coming? Probably won't even get the number one assistant coach in the Cyclones. He's listening to the pregame in the Monona airport to go see Rafe LaFrenz and hardly see the plane come in. And he's listening to the radio trying to get the freaking reception, because that's in the old days where you're in the middle of nowhere in Northeast Iowa, and Gary knows what that means. And there's a knock on his window. He wasn't paying attention, and guys roll down the window. It's Johnny Orr. And Gary knows all about Johnny Orr. So Johnny jumps in and he said, where's the terminal? And my friend goes, there's no terminal in Monona. He said, I'm not an idiot. Let's go with the game. I cut it close. Well, didn't even intend on getting here. So they get the line, and the line is huge because they're late to the game. And of course, LaFrenz is winning games, and Roy Williams has been there, and everybody else has been there to recruit him all over the country. And he gets the line to pay for the ticket. Johnny Orr does, and says, good evening, ma'am. He starts walking by, and my friend is Gene. He walks by, and this elderly lady that doesn't watch much basketball said, sir, just a minute, you got to pay. And he says, well, I'm with this guy behind me. Well, he's going to pay. So Gene starts laughing, and he says, ma'am, don't you know who you're talking to? And Johnny Orr gets right up to her face and goes, ma'am, and he turns to Gene and goes, this is the one and only Johnny Orr. So Johnny's turned to Gene, making him look like Johnny Orr. Well, everybody in line starts laughing. And this elder lady gets all bamboozled, doesn't know what to say. And somebody comes behind her and says, let these two pass in for free. And Johnny goes, no, ma'am. And he gives her a big bill and walks in. And the lady gives the money back. And I'll be my plate. She's so embarrassed. I'll pay you. Go ahead. I'll pay. You don't need a ticket. So Johnny is sitting up at halftime. And they have a half-court shot to win a car. Okay? So Johnny, he's talking to everybody around him, and Gene's a celebrity. He turns to Gene, he goes, you bleep, 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 bleep. I don't even have a ticket. And Gene goes, what the hell are you complaining about? Of course, he's holding court up in the stands. And Gene says, I don't get it. He says, I don't have a ticket. I can't win that damn car if that ball goes in the hoop. So there's my friend's story, Gary. I know you did the best you could. Everybody knows that what would happen if Hayden Fry didn't have Bill Brasher? What would happen to Lute Olson with all those longtime assistants, and all his assistants that he had? And what would have Tom Davis done without you and all those assistants around you? And I thank you for all the great memories in your performance. You have nothing to apologize in recruiting whatsoever. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. I never got in free at MFL Marmac.
You never got in free at MFL Marmac. Again, I've never even heard of that, MFL Marmac, before tonight. It's been used.
You should go up and take a look at it. It's actually in a very beautiful area of Iowa, right on the river.
Completely unrelated. As we're talking about Northwest Iowa. Have you been to did you go to any of the Field of Dreams games?
And I've been to the Field of Dreams, but not to those baseball games, no. But I did go to Game 3 of the World Series this year.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. See, was
my nephew is one of the. I grew up just outside of Philly. My nephew is one of the team doctors, so he invited my daughter and I, and we went back for Game 3. It was a blast.
And I'm sorry that I forgot that you were a Phillies fan. So
mm-hmm. It didn't end the way I liked it, but it was a fun ride while it lasted.
What a run, though. What a run by Philly. Yeah. Okay, I believe this is the final call tonight, and Joe, who got off, got waiting. I'm sorry, Joe.
Come on, Joe.
You were next, but let's get to David, who I think is probably going to be the last call tonight. David, welcome to the show. Nope. David, See, that's called being starstruck. When he sees you and he sees his picture up next to your face,
I don't know
that's
about
called
that.
being starstruck, Gary.
I think he got NFL Marmacked.
Jeff Ball, real quick. He says, is Nimmers injured? I believe he is. Now, he could be redshirting as well. That's very much possible. I would not be surprised if they redshirt Nimmers, because I think they believe he's got a potential of maybe being a guy who can work into the rotation and become a scholarship guy in due time. Eric says, how good is Peyton's brother that's coming in? They just signed him, so Fran can talk about him now. Fran described him as kind of being similar to Peyton, but I think he's a better ball handler. He played a lot of point guard before he had his big growth spurt, Gary. I don't know how much you've seen Price, but
I don't know any of their recruits. I'd like to learn more about him. But if he's anything like his brother, he's pretty good.
I believe he's considered to be the better of the prospects out of high school. But again, Peyton has really come along, it appears, at least during this past summer. And Pugmaster, appreciate the super sticker, Pugmaster. Thank you for being here and for the support. Let's try David again. David, are you with us?
I believe I am.
Yes, we
All
can
right,
hear you,
David.
All right, perfect. So yeah, just to follow on what the high school basketball coach said about the young kid. I love the fact that he could see the upside and bring him in. That was amazing. Because the upside was, he brought in a kid he wasn't going to want to bring in, and it helped win the game. That's neither here nor there. We're talking basketball. I was talking basketball there too. Sorry.
There you go.
All right, so let's talk about basketball. So Fran pretty much has always played a game with defense and offense centric. In my opinion, when he came to Iowa, we were so destitute that he had to take the top players that he could get. Some players that might not fit the mold, but they were 4 stars, and he can get those 4 stars from Omaha or what have you. Like, he's going to take them, even if they don't fit the mold. But that gentleman was right. He does want tall, lengthy, wing-type players. And he is innovative. He doesn't really want I don't think he would, not take a 7-footer. But then again, I think if he could get a 6'11" guy who can shoot from outside and be constantly active, that's the kind of player he wants.
Well, he's got 2 7-footers riding the bench right now, David.
Right. In Ugly and Molly, but I think they're 6'11", aren't they?
I mean, 7 foot 6'11". What's the difference? They can't shoot.
It's halfway versus the other. But
they're not stretching the floor.
They're not stretching the floor, no. But I don't think I think he looks at the 5-point, traditionally speaking, is not the biggest facet of the game that he's wanting to play. And when I said the people that he wanted to recruit, I think we're starting to see him get the players that he wanted to recruit. I think Olis, the older brother, obviously was somebody that he wanted to recruit that could defend well. I think Olis can defend well as well. But when he took Bohannon, when he took all these people in the younger time frame, and our offense was incredible, no questions asked about that, right? But our defense was lacking. He was getting the people he could get when he could get them, filling the roles in which he wanted to fill, making it entertaining, but not having his whole scope. In other words, at Siena, he didn't make it to the Sweet 16 without offense and defense. He was just able to do things under the radar. Like Kentucky, when they saw us, in my opinion, big teams are now watching who Iowa recruits. Why wouldn't they? Fran's obviously great at getting gyms nobody sees. I think the Murrays are only going to emphasize that fact.
He's good at getting in on guys early, and then typically a blue blood swoops in. I mean, JP Estrella is a perfect example of a kid who Iowa should.
That'd be a tall guy to be playing for us right now.
JP Estrella was a guy that Fran got in on. I think was the first guy to really push for JP, and Tennessee comes in and offers the kid. I mean, there have been rumors that we're talking six figures.
Yeah.
he ends up going to Tennessee. So no, I give Fran. That's why I'm less hard on. I get criticized because people think I'm harder on Kirk than I am on Fran. It's not a matter of being harder on one, harder than it. I look at the effort Fran puts on the recruiting trail. You're absolutely right. He puts the guy's out there working, and his coaching staff is working, and he's been so close. Whether you're talking about Tyler Eulis or you're talking about JP Estrella, you're talking about Fardaz Amack. I don't think they got as far with Amack as maybe we initially thought they would. But I mean, you just go down the list, and that's not even script. The kid that just committed to Duke, is it not Rock? Power, JT Power.
Yeah.
Whatever, the kid that just committed to Duke. I think Iowa, it sounded like Iowa was maybe second on his list. So, no, I've always been very complimentary of Fran's effort on the recruiting trail. But as you know, Gary, you either get them or you don't, right? On the trail, you either come in first or you come in last, right? So it doesn't really matter. So
and that may be true, but at the same time, given Fran's style and given what we've been able to produce recently Garza was a 4-star, no question. But Keegan wasn't, and he's having a great time in Sacramento. Outside of, there's one other guy who might get Rookie of the Year, but otherwise he's the leading candidate. It's early. I'll say that, but it's very impressive. I guess my only point that I'm really trying to make here is that I don't think Rabacha is our number one most important player. I would put that not even on Chris Murray yet, but I think it could develop to that point. But I would say from last year at the end and this year currently, the difference maker on the floor who can only be that certain player would obviously be Tony Perkins, who you actually referred to prior as well. But Tony is making the kind of crazy defensive plays, never quitting, never giving up. He's hitting free throws. Rabacha could have a little bit of practice on that route. I mean, trust me, I couldn't hit a free throw anyway, but to be a difference maker, in my opinion, you have to hit your free throws, because at the end of the game, we're going to need that.
I get you. David, I got to let you slide, but no, I think you're right about Tony Perkins, and he'd probably, Rabacha and Tony maybe 1A and 1B for me, and I want to get Gary's take on that as well. David, I appreciate you calling in, sir.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, no problem.
And I do want to, I had that written down. Your thoughts on Jess Settle's comment about Andre Woolridge? Was that jumping the gun a little bit? I know he called your name.
I'll tell you what, Andre Woolridge was as good as it gets. I mean, he flat out carried us. I remember we played Kentucky in the they talked about full court pressure. We played Kentucky in the Sweet 16 or NCAA tournament. Maybe it was the round of 32, and they tried to press us full court the entire game, and Andre went through it like hot knife through butter. They could not press him. He was a one-man wrecking crew. And Jess was right. He led the league in scoring and in assists, but we finished second to Minnesota, and they gave it to Bobby Jackson. But Andre had a phenomenal year that year. He was an elite player. That's Tony's got some work to do to get that level, because he was a one-man show. It was a fun year to watch. A phenomenal player.
And Justin, JP Estrella is the recruit that I was referring to. That I mean, I think it's pretty much common knowledge that NIL was the primary reason why he picked Tennessee over Iowa. Last thing for me, Gary, and we're going to be done. I appreciate you hanging out for a few extra minutes here.
You bet.
Aaron Eulis was, I know it's late in the game. You're up 40. He made some plays that kind of, made me raise my eyebrow there in the second half, specifically passing the basketball. I wish he could shoot threes. Maybe that'll come. He took 3 or 4 tonight, which is maybe a good sign as far as him trying to get the confidence there. But just your thoughts on Aaron Eulis. He coming off the suspension for the exhibition game. He seems to have improved.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can't have too many guards. I mean, you need guards. Guards are really important in running your team and making shots, and so that's encouraging. They They certainly could use him as well as the freshman, who I think's got a chance too. The Bowen kid, I think he's got a chance. You just kind of live with the growing pains as they get better, because it's a tough league they're playing in.
All right, folks. Iowa defeating North Carolina A&T 112-71. As always on the channel, I want to give a shout out to Josue Alvarez down at Dewey Ford in Ankeny. If you're interested in, if you need a new or used vehicle, certainly call Josue at 515-776-1068. If you mention that From the Hawkeye of the Storm sent you, you'll get a $100 Casey's gas card upon vehicle purchase. Again, Josue down at Dewey Ford at 515-776-1068. The Hawkeyes this evening with a 112-71 victory over North Carolina A&T. Of course, they'll be back on the hardwood this coming Wednesday when they take on Seton Hall at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Fox Sports 1. So we'll get a somewhat top-of-the-line production crew there. No offense to Jess Settles.
My goodness, you just threw Jess under the bus.
He makes the BTN Plus broadcast bearable, Gary.
Did your color go in and out on your while you're watching?
Yes, it's not just one game. It's every game. They have this issue every single game, and then they have the pixelated issues, and it's ridiculous. Now, I will say this: it's better than it used to be. I remember last year, Gary, there were games where there was at least one game where the first 10 minutes of the game were just non-existent. They didn't have the stream on, so you just miss the first 10 minutes of the game. So, anyways, like you say, at least we were able to watch the games.
Yep.
I didn't get your thoughts on the women's. I don't know if you watched the women last night on BTN Plus, but
I did not. I did get to see them play for a half the other night when I was down for the men's game, and they've got a nice team. My goodness, it's gonna be a lot of fun basketball in Iowa City this winter.
These two teams, the women's and the men, but they got a chance to both be really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay. One final thing for you football fans. I will be back with you live tomorrow with Coach Patterson following Iowa and Wisconsin, which, of course, will also be an FS1 game, 2:30 p.m. Central Time for the kick. Myself and Coach Patterson following the game. You can follow me on Twitter at From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Twitter. And certainly hit the like button on your way out. It does make a difference. Coach Close, appreciate the time as always, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday evening. You're not going.
Don, I said hi.
I will absolutely do that. You're not flying out for the Seton Hall game, are you?
No, nope. I will be here. I'm going south towards the end of the week, but not to New Jersey.
All right, folks. I will be back with you tomorrow with Coach Patterson following Iowa, Wisconsin.